Well, hello, and happy Sunday. Man, the weeks are going so quickly. It is officially the last Sunday in the month of March. It means that we have ended the first quarter of this year by Thursday. And I would have to say that that is actually a very, very big deal. To think that we just started by saying Happy New Year, and here we are 3 months in. And so I believe it's so vital for us to take the time out and reflect on the last 3 months and identify what we need to do to step into the next quarter of this year. So, for those of you who are joining for the very first time, or those of you who will catch the replay, I just want to say welcome to Real Talk with Marsha-Ann. If you missed last week's episode with my mom, Laura Donaldson, you owe it to yourself to watch it. Pearls of wisdom, pearls of greatness, pearls of really understanding what it means. Oh, I have the wrong banner up for my episode. Oh my goodness, it says live life to the fullest. I am seeing that now. I have the wrong banner. I don't even know how to change it. I believe I want to be able to change that. Let me see if I can. Don't leave me. Let's see if I'm able to do that. I don't even know how. One moment, please. I have a little boo-boo on my banner. This is the one. Let's see. Ha! I did it. I did it on my own. That's fantastic. So yes, today's topic is really about the importance of letting go and living fully. And so I was saying that such a blessing last week's episode. If you were able to catch that episode last week, let me see you drop your comment on that and let me know if you actually caught it last week. If you didn't, that's okay. The replay is available to you. If you're watching this live via Facebook or you're watching via YouTube, thank you so much for joining. This is Real Talk with Marsha-Ann, a space where I believe that I'm meant to engage, encourage, and empower and ensure that one another, we are truly living a life of purpose, passion, and prosperity. And I gained a lot more strength after listening to my mom last week, Sunday. And I can't thank you enough. And mommy is saying the very same thing. Whoever don't know, Mrs. Laura D is missing out. Oh, thank you so much for saying that. What a woman. Would you believe that since last week's Sunday's episode, mommy actually was the recipient of another award this past Friday for her 26 years of unbroken service to the Mothers Union, which is a part of her church. But more importantly, this particular role that she occupied, she actually has been writing for the last researching and writing for the last 26 years, quarterly newsletters, which would support those who are actually considered shut-in members, those folks who are immobile, they're no longer able to come to church. Talk about living life on purpose and living it fully. And so it really is such a blessing to know that those are the examples that we really ought to follow, where we ask ourselves each day, am I living just for today? Or is there anything that I am doing today that is truly leaving a legacy for tomorrow? Am I living a life of impact and influence? Because if not, I believe this is a moment for us to really spring clean and enter the next quarter with a greater level of intention. I don't believe we're meant to beat up on ourselves. I do believe, however, that we must assess ourselves, much like how we assess our bank account, assess our budget, assess our lifestyle, assess our habits of our health and our wellness. Are we truly assessing our lives, mind, body, and soul? And if we're not, guess what? It's not too late. No time like now. So, how will we do that? A big part of why I chose this topic is that I replayed Mom's interview and cross examined her all week long. Because I believe if you can get to 92 with God as your guide and everything still intact, there are further lessons that we need to learn. Many said to me there has to be a part two. I couldn't agree more. I didn't get a chance to ask Mommy about community, church, and charity. Three importance and courage. I didn't get a chance to really dive into that as I had planned. But what it afforded me to do is to say, what is it that we need to do for ourselves right now? Face where we are right now and identify the areas of our lives where we know we are made for more. We know it already. But for one reason or another, there are things that continuously hold us back. And I am the broken record that speaks to it because I know what battles I've had. And some of them I'm going to reveal to you openly today because life is too short not to share. And I've made a decision to share with the view to at least help one. And so when I spoke to Mommy about her ability to have courage and her ability to take everything to God, I then said to myself, what are some of the courageous things that I have done in the last couple of years that have allowed me to accept that unless I choose myself first, just like Mom shared, and unless I choose to live life fully on my terms, what are the things that are possibly holding me back? And so I would safely say, I want you to ask yourself those questions. And when I wrote the script not long ago to share it on YouTube, some of the things that hold us back might be considered small. But I'm going to make you uncomfortable this evening with the knowledge that there's no growth that's had with comfort. That any growth that we need to exercise, there's no butterfly that exists without going through the painful, ugly, dark stages of being in a cocoon and really even questioning whether or not it can come out. And so even if it becomes uncomfortable for you after this, when you do the exercise, you ask God to give you the strength that's needed, because here is what I know. You see this finger? Hold up your own finger. All we have is one life. One. And so if we're living it on the terms of others, living it through the lenses of others, living it with reservation, living it with fear, which has so many levels, then we're truly not living it fully. And I don't believe we need any other examples around us for others who have what we refer to gone too soon, for others who have walked their path and on their last moments they're saying, boy, if only I believed in myself enough to do X. What is X? And so I want to talk about the category first of what are those things that you know you need to let go of to step into the second quarter of 2022, to step into April with God as your guide, knowing that this year you are 1 year older. This conversation I'm having with you, I'm having with myself as well. So don't for a moment think that I am speaking to you. We're speaking to each other. But if getting older means we don't get to reverse time, we don't get to say, if I coulda, woulda, shoulda. We don't need to do that when we have today. And when we have today and we can say, God, help me, because there are certain things we need to let go of. If it is that climbing up a hill means you have a bag of potatoes on your shoulder, and those potatoes include regret, resentment, fear, doubt, shame, control, unforgiveness, lack of self-confidence, fear that is writhing you because you're afraid of the judgment of others, or you're holding on to a fantasy of what you want life to be like, and it's not that, but you're still holding on to that fantasy. You're holding on to tradition because this is how it has always been done in your family or in your circle. Or you're holding on to comfort because the thought of letting go of some of the things is going to take you out of your comfort zone. You're holding on to this whole legacy of limiting beliefs, self-sabotage, imposter syndrome. And if you're feeling this, and if any of the words pierce you, it's because it's a pain point. For those of you who are just joining, we are talking about the importance of letting go to live fully. And so identify for yourself, what are some of those things that you know you need to let go of? Share some of those in the chat as well. Drop it in there so that we can help one another. And for some of these exercises to be very effective, and you will know when you need to actually get help, which I absolutely encourage. If you know you need counseling, if you know you need someone else to listen to you, it is so important that you identify, here are my pain points. My pain point of regret is holding me back. My pain point of hurt, my pain point of betrayal, my pain point of unforgiveness, my pain point of bitterness, my pain point of lack of fulfillment, my pain point of not having that degree, my pain point of not getting that job, or that pain point of believing I'm at a stage in my life where I thought I would have achieved X and I have not. Where is your pain point today? Your pain point of saying everybody else seems to be living a life of purpose, but I still haven't found mine. What if I told you it wasn't lost? What if I told you it's trapped in what you are holding on to? And if you let it go, God will actually do what he ought to do. Does this resonate with you? Because it certainly resonates with me. And I believe that we hold on sometimes because we want to make everything seem fine. We want to make everything seem like we have it together because we're women and we wear superwoman capes. I am so happy that my core women are on here. I need you this evening because I'm going up today, to the shock of you too, but I'm going to talk. Yes, I'm glad you're here because here is what I want to share with you. Recently, folks have said to me, oh my goodness, you look so free. I am. Folks have said to me, you seem so much lighter. I am. Folks have said to me, you also seem so much more open. and that you're just speaking up and speaking your mind, that's because I am. Because you see, I held myself back. I held myself back for a while, for a long time. I held myself back and I identified that I was holding on to things that prohibited my growth. I would like us to think of an analogy that I use very, very often. And that analogy is a potted plant. A potted plant that has been put in a very small vessel for a long time. But for the plant to really grow and thrive, it needs to come out of that vessel and be transplanted in a new pot, a bigger pot, so that the roots themselves may expand, grow for this plant to flourish. But instead, comfort over change is oftentimes chosen. And when we choose comfort over change, what ends up happening is that the roots over time become stifled. And once like lacking oxygen, if over time those roots remain stifled, what do you believe will happen? The plant will begin to die. But the demonstration of the death of the plant does not happen instantaneously. You see, the roots of that plant will begin to wither slowly over time. And no one will know. No one will know for a long time until you begin to see the changes in the leaves which were once green that now begin to turn brown. But they don't turn brown all at the same time. They actually, over time, may shed one leaf, then another, until over time, which could be a month, a year, 10 years, usually not so long, but over time, it dies. I use that analogy to ask you to reflect. Yes, thanks for sharing that. It is so important to remember that we've got to choose change over comfort. Maybe it's time for you to be transplanted out of certain situations, certain mindsets, certain habits, certain people, certain places, certain things. You need to assess your roots. Are you thriving in the pot that you're in? Or is it time for you to embrace that although you have resided in that pot all this time, maybe it's a habit that's just been your habit, but it doesn't mean it's a healthy habit. Do you need to change so that you can truly thrive? Have you held on to so many limiting beliefs about your own ability for so very long that you have not even been able to see yourself as a great oak tree. You're still seeing yourself as a seed that's buried under the earth. It is time for you to know that God has made you big, great, and mighty. And the only limit that exists today is the limit that you have put on yourself. At no point am I suggesting that life has been easy. It has not. At no point am I suggesting that your path has been smooth. It has not. Neither has mine. But I'm going to use myself as a candid example. Some of the things I have shared before, others I'm going to be sharing for the first time. But when I encourage you to share your own journey for yourself and assess the roots in your potted plant, if I go to my assessment of my journey, I shared with my former high school, my high school friend for life, and I shared with her just about a week and a half ago that I thought I was the only one that was being bullied in high school, like bullied. I was bullied in prep school as well, but I didn't even know I was being bullied. I didn't know the name bullying, but I did not know the impact it had on me, because there were parts of my life's journey that, in an effort to reduce being bullied, I became a people pleaser just so that I did not have to be subjected to being teased, just so that I didn't have to be subjected to hearing, why do you speak like that? So after a while, my voice got quieter and quieter, especially in certain audiences. Home and family was always a safe space for me. But in an effort to not allow myself to be ridiculed or teased for those who had the perception that my parents had a lot of money because my dad was a political figure and that he was the mayor, so it meant that I was a child of privilege. When you grow up and have those labels affixed to you, the stigma that comes along with it is tough to bear. In fact, being ostracized was something that I had to come to grips with just a couple of years ago, that I faced. Because, yes, you were the goody two-shoe. This is how you speak. This is what your parents do, which makes, they had no idea that we had the most humble beginnings. And there were times that I actually resented being labeled the mayor's daughter, because I was like everybody else. But their perception versus my reality. So even if you have a safe nest called home, when you go out into the real world, it's not easy. And so let us dispel the notion that sticks and stones may break my bones, but words don't harm you. Words harm. They do. And so my posture over time changed. I had, and I have always had, a very small, trusted circle. I'm so honored that my aunt is on here. My mom is on here. My BFFFFF of 100 years is on here. Well, I'm not 100, but she's on here as well. I have cousins on here. I have my close counterparts and prayer partners and my warriors, my mom's adopted daughters are on here. And today, I am choosing to even speak out more. And I'm so happy that my aunt in particular is on here. And I will not cry, Aunt Joyce. But I tell you this, hurt people become vulnerable. So those childhood hurts of being bullied and having these experiences was a thorn in my side, but I didn't know because I put a Band-Aid over it. And so in high school, I carried that. And it was so beautiful to have fresh beginnings. New beginnings tend to afford us to feel like we're repotted. And so when I migrated, it was one of the best things that could have happened to me because I was embraced for who I was and who I am in a new space because they knew nothing of me. I didn't have to deal with the labels of growing up. Who is your mom? Who is your dad? Why do you the perception that teachers are going to have to treat me differently because of my parents? Wrong. Everything wrong. And do you know what it's like to be that age and trying to prove yourself and nobody wanted to listen? So when my friend told me a week and a half ago, Marsha-Ann, trust me, you were not the only one. She was mimicked because of the shoes she had. Also, listen to this carefully. My self-confidence became highly affected and I had body shaming issues because in the 9th grade into 10th grade, I began to have such grave issues with my skin that I was the only student in high school that an exception had to be made for. My skirt, which looks like a granny skirt, my skirt was mid-calf when everybody else was knee length. And my blouses had to be longer below my elbow when everyone else's own was mid-arm. That affected me big time because I stood out and there was no compassion for why. Because again, I was the only one, so it seemed like an exception was made for me. They had no idea that I was battling with hypopigmentation, huge white plaques that was beginning to take over my body, and I was fearing that it would take over my face. Why am I sharing all of that with you? Because hurt, resentment, rejection, being ostracized, being bullied, labeling. Can you imagine how that affected me? And so embrace new beginnings, because my new beginnings happened when I migrated. And I didn't have to explain who I was. I never had to justify anything. I hid my skin for a long time. Now I can openly share my skin with great pride and joy for how God has carried me through. And a part of letting go and living fully, as recent as all of you know this story, but as recent as 2020, the summer of 2020 was the first time I went public talking about having lupus and how lupus has affected my skin and other parts of my body. But that was something I had to let go of because that was another sack. That was another potato in my sack up this hill that I couldn't carry, because the label of lupus for me meant that I was flawed, my perception. I didn't want a pity party. I did not want anyone to think I was less than. I didn't want to be treated differently again. You get it? You understand the importance of retracing your steps to know your why of today, because thriving is not possible if we are clutching on to things that we need to release to God. The things that we can no longer control. I'm inviting you today. You owe it to yourself to let it go. So that sense of letting my story go and setting myself free was only one aspect. But you see, I was so afraid of the fear of judgment with having lupus that I didn't want anyone to think I was any less than. And because I didn't want any exceptions made for me, I did more to my own damage, to my own detriment. But where else did I need to let go? I needed to let go off of the fantasy of having a perfect life. I needed to let go off of the need to do everything for everyone else and not properly take care of myself. And so when Mommy spoke last week about the importance of self-love, and I have always seen her demonstrate, take care of yourself. Like she told you, have that quick nibble. Live your life, give back. Never, ever for a moment put yourself last. So many nuggets that we learned from Mom. But for me, I knew that taking my life to the next level and living fully, there were other things I needed to let go of. So put on your seatbelt and let me tell you why I have the glow that I do. Let me tell you that this glow is not my glow, it's God's glow all over my life. And I would say to you, living fully truly means living the life that God designed for you to have. That life really ought to be without strife. Doesn't mean that we're not going to have hardships, but it means that our faith should be strong enough to push us through. I believe that living fully means living a life of purpose, embracing a life of peace, enjoying your passion, a life of prosperity, nothing missing, nothing broken, nothing lacking, a life of joy, a life of happiness, a life of fulfillment, a life of contentment, a life of courage, a life of charity. Let me tell you, a life of real purpose. That if it is that we should face our Maker tonight or tomorrow, we must be able to say, God, I used this life for everything that you designed it to be and more. I gave back. I blessed others. I chose to have a life of impact and influence. I used my voice. I spoke up for those who couldn't speak for themselves. And I owned my greatness and my purpose. Because every single one of you under the sound of my voice need to remember this. God made you amazing. So no matter what you have gone through, no matter what you are going through, your story is not for you. Your story is to prove that the test that you have gone through or going through is your testimony to help someone else. So it's time for us to get to the next level of our lives. It is time for us to appreciate, know, and understand that if you are currently facing fear, shame, control, rejection, abandonment, name them, call them, self-sabotage, fear of judgment, fear of failure, fear of success. If you are facing any of those, hurt, unforgiveness, bitterness, understand that it is slow poison that you are drinking. That slow poison is killing the root of your plant, the root of your life. And I want you today to make a decision to choose yourself. You ask God what it is that you know you need to let go of. It's so easy to say, Marsha-Ann, you would never know my story. I don't. And guess what? You don't know all of mine either. This is a no judgment zone. But let me tell you what I know. God wants you to thrive. God wants me to thrive. And there is no way that you can thrive in an environment, a mental environment, a heart environment, a body, mind, and soul environment that's riddled in toxicity. If you're a part of a toxic environment, or you're with a toxic person or toxic people or in a toxic place, and you can taste the toxicity, it is time for you to ask God and yourself, what will it take for me to choose me? Because otherwise, resentment will always come if you are living in the sewage of what's unhealthy. I want that to soak. This is not a comfortable conversation, but it's necessary. I don't know how old you are. It's irrelevant. Let me tell you what I know, though. It's not too late. It's not too late. There are some things you need to end. And God has already told you what they are. You're harboring it. You're holding on to it. The roots are dead. And the only way that it can that change can come is if you truly make a decision today. Some of you have dreams that you are not even fulfilling because you are clutching on to all of these things that you cannot get blessed by God because you have not had the courage or the ability to let these things that are taking control of your mind, your body, and soul, and you got to let it go. Perfectionism, it is cancerous. Living life according to the design that others thought you should have, unhealthy. Holding on to things because that's what your family has always done. Maybe you are the one to break that cycle. Holding on to lifelong hurts and secrets that you need to ask God to deliver you from. Let it go. Feeling less than because you heard things that made you feel that you were never good enough. After today, stop it, stop it, stop it. Caring about what people think of you, absolutely. The fear of judgment is real. The fear of judgment will make us remain in a job, remain in a marriage, remain in a house, live in debt, living for others because of the famous, what will people say? I am preaching to myself. But here is what you need to hear today. You see the God that you serve? He sees and knows everything. He knows the end from the beginning. You see that comment about caring about what people say? That's fear comes in so many forms. Fear of rejection, fear of acceptance, the fear of judgment, the fear of failure, the fear of success, the fear of abandonment, the fear of loneliness. Self-love means being content with who you are and who God created you to be, not what you have. Self-love is within. And being happy with who you are without anything or anyone, just you and God, is the first place to start. It's the first place. And I want you to ask yourself, what will it take for me to love myself enough to make some of the toughest, most radical decisions because I got to choose me? What will it take? Some of the illnesses that we have is a result of some of the toxicities that we are currently harboring. Toxic thoughts, toxic ideas, toxic environments, toxic situations, toxic people, toxic habits. They create illnesses, whether we like it or not. I am currently, by God's grace, and a choice to live life fully and choose self-love, I am at my healthiest than I have ever been. Do I have flare-ups? I do. And I know I create them. Exhaustion, not taking meds, overdoing it, when I forget and take on stressors that I should be leaving to God. Yeah, I have flare-ups with my lupus at times. But I want you to ask yourself these 3 important questions as an assignment. And when I close this evening, I will better explain why sometimes, all times, when you seek God and trust Him to choose to thrive and be yourself fully, He will make a way. He will strengthen you. He will give you courage. He will make you strong and courageous to do the things you ought to do because He only wants the best for you. So what are some of the questions that I think you should ask yourself? What would your life look like if you had no regrets? What would your life look like? I want you to list 3 things, people, situations, and habits that you believe are holding you back. It's very important. 3 things. List 3 things, whether people, situations, your habits that you believe are holding you back. It could get uncomfortable for you, but you cannot fix what you do not confront. Thirdly, why are you remaining where you are? Is it because of comfort, or is it because of fantasy? Let me explain. You may remain in a job because you are in love with the concept of where you are, who you're associated with, the title that you have, but you are unhappy, you're unfulfilled, and you know that you need a change. But it's a fantasy. It's what you have dreamed of, but it is not what you are experiencing. It's not your reality. You may remain in a marriage because you know and believe in the construct of marriage, and you have an image in your head of what marriage and what your life should look like. And so you are in love with that, but that's not what you have. In fact, you are so unequally yoked, and you are fighting against what you already know is unhealthy, but you are holding on because you are in love with the fantasy of what it should look like. And I'm going to add an additional question because I am so compelled to do this. Are you feeling unfulfilled with where you are now? And if the answer is no, fantastic. If the answer is yes, I am unfulfilled, I want you to write yourself a letter. Dear Marsha-Ann, you deserve to feel fulfilled and to flourish. Here are the 3 things that you need to work on to do that. Write yourself a letter and release it to God. Because at the end of it all, I want you to rise each day knowing a part of letting go includes living your life on purpose. Not existing, not merely breathing, but living your life on purpose. And maybe for these questions to be answered, you may have to also go to your safe space, your safe people, your healing company, your prayer partners, your friend or closest friends, your confidant, and ask them quite honestly, what area of your life are you dimming the light and withering away like the roots of that plant, knowing full well that you're made for more? You are made for more. And I want you to own that today. I want you to accept that you can take on more. I want you to do that charity that you desire to do. I want you to stop overthinking. I say that to myself and I say it to you too, because overthinking is a form of paralysis and it is absolutely a distraction of the enemy that prohibits us from truly living out our dreams, the dreams that God has given us to do. We have an assignment. Let it be that our life is lived to the fullest. And so for me, living fully and letting go takes courage. I will tell you now the most courageous step that I took was a step of letting go of the fantasy of holding everything together when I knew full well that the roots, the trunk, the leaves, my whole tree of my marriage needed to have ended. And I let it go. I made a decision out of self-love to end my marriage. That was a big, courageous deal. I've never spoken about it on a platform, in this forum, or anything. But I'm telling you, making that decision a couple years ago was a big part of my need to live this chapter fully. No judgment on anyone. I had to choose me, and I had to depend upon God to guide me through. The courage it took was only afforded by God. And who I am today, stronger, better, living fully and on purpose, using my voice again, could not have happened until I made a decision to let go. And many would say, how? Was it easy? Is that ever easy? No, it's not like turning off a light switch. But I held on longer prior to that because fear of judgment. Oh my goodness. How can I do this? What will people say? How would I be perceived? Fear of the unknown made me hold on. Fear of dismantling my very valuable core value, and that is family. But I can tell you this, it's going to be 4 years this in a couple months, and there's no question, yes, there's no question about it, that it was better for all parties involved. I am pleased that my mom is on here, my aunt is on here, my elders who held me through. But I share it openly, especially among sisters. Not that I'm encouraging anyone to do this by any stretch of the imagination, but I wanted to share that I had to come to a point of acceptance about what's healthy and what's toxic. I also had to come to a point of acceptance that self-love does come at a cost. And I had to come to a point of acceptance that choosing me and being healthier, stronger, more confident, having my voice, living my life, owning my purpose, and overcoming my limits and owning my greatness and purpose could only happen with that release. And so I was able to release doubt, fear, and instead accept God's love, joy, and peace. I said it. Because I had to come to a place where I knew that the next chapters in my life should not be lived under the terms or the perception of what others think, feel, believe. But you see, when you and God are in covenant with one another, whatever your hurts may be, whatever your challenges may be, it could be the fear of being alone. He would remind you, he'll never leave you nor forsake you. It could be the fear of failure. He will tell you that your steps are ordered. He will tell you, commit your plans to the Lord and you will succeed. Okay? It could be the fear of illness and how will you manage. He will tell you that you are healed. Extend your faith. And whatever you are going through, it's not a full stop. It's called going through. It's a passage. It's your cocooning. It is your preparation for becoming that beautiful butterfly, but it comes at a cost. I encourage you today to write your list. This is the last important assignment. Write the list so granular from your childhood days to now. What are those hurts that you are carrying that's not allowing you to soar like an eagle? What are they? What are they? And I would also remind you of this. Whilst it's not easy, I can tell you where the glow comes from. Until you choose, and it's a daily choice, it is not always easy because provocation will come. If betrayal has come your way and it is so deep that you lack trusting anyone, you have to take it to God. And you have to ask God to forgive those who have trespassed against you, because you want your prayers to be answered too. Let go. And seeking forgiveness and ask, and you have to also forgive yourself in the process, because you might beat up on yourself on things that you have held on to for so long, and you said to yourself, if I had let go before of the job, if I had let go off of this toxic environment, if I had moved from that house, if I had left that situation, if I wasn't abused, if I didn't entertain X, Y, and Z all this time, sometimes you have held on to bitterness where you are disappointed in yourself. You got to let that go too. Because forgiving yourself first is the first requisite to being open. You also may need to ask God to have others forgive you too, because you have wronged them. Ain't nobody perfect. So asking God to forgive you also means identifying, what part did I play in any of this? Was I an enabler? Did I accommodate certain things? Did I not set boundaries that I should have? Did I entertain or swallow for the sake of peace situations and circumstances and spaces because I didn't want to rock the boat? Forgive yourself. Give yourself grace. But know this, every chapter should be assessed through the eyes of God. Know the part that you have played, and then choose to release. Release yourself. And make sure in the process you release others that you have held on your level of hurt, disappointment, upset, unforgiveness, bitterness, all of those things that you know are unhealthy. You know it's bad when you can taste it. I used to taste it. I used to be that upset. I used to harbor the unforgiveness. I had a difficult time for quite a while. And it showed. I looked older. I was not flourishing as much. I couldn't give back. I was pouring from an empty cup. Now, I can share the importance of trusting God, even when you don't understand, is a different level of posture. And it's not always easy. So you have to have your sounding board of folks who can pray you through, where you can say to them, talk to your elders. They haven't had life easy either. But your sense of courage and the decision to say, God, I'm trusting you in this chapter. I'm letting go and I'm letting God. Because letting go and letting God means living freely. You got to believe. Trust Believe. Believe in yourself. You are stronger than you know. So if you are in anything that's toxic, to include the thoughts you have had of yourself, to include things in your heart that you know you're harboring. If you have resentment against from your parents, from someone who has hurt you, from any childhood abuse, from neglect, from abandonment, if you have had resentment because of how you've been treated in your work, in your marriage, in your situation, in friendships, let it go. Because here's another fact. Everybody else is pressing on. So, you know, when you have it playing over in your head, like a movie on rewind, you're not getting anywhere. But I don't want you to live the rest of your life like that. I want you to embrace love, joy, peace, kindness, goodness, gentleness, prosperity, your purpose, your passion, personal development, professional development, your relationships, people, your family, your friends, positivity, gratitude, grace, grit. That fulfillment, that and more is what you deserve. I pray today has been a blessing for you. And I want to thank you for being the ones that would be here with me as I shared another very significant chapter in my life. And I hasten to say, determine for yourself how you believe you want to impact an audience of one person. Maybe you want to mentor somebody. Maybe because of being unwell, you have fought the good fight of faith. My warrior Christine is on here. We all remember Christine and her faith walk as she champions her cause and champions knowing that God has her and her cancer is under her feet. Maybe Christine just wants to help one. She already shared with us that that's her mission and she's doing it. Maybe you know your mission is to cry before God and say, okay, God, I didn't come here to live, eat, sleep, and expire. But instead, I want to live with the greatest level of purpose and intention that I have ever lived before. Something happens when you turn 50. I made a decision when I turned 50. The next chapters, they ain't gonna be the same. Settling, accepting less than, not rewarding my worth, not claiming my greatness. All those things impacted on me prior. But I made a decision. And I would safely say that self-love comes in many forms. Self-awareness comes in many forms. And I am one who believes in love. I believe in the institution. It changes nothing. But I also know that I had to choose what was right for me. Along with everything else, I had to let go of fear of judgment and fear of failure and fear of acceptance. And the day that I made my covenant again with God, say, God, I'm going to trust you. So much has opened up beautifully for me, where God is affording me to be me unapologetically. And I want to say to you tonight, choose you. Choose you. And do make sure the motive is pure. God knows your heart. He knows the desires of your heart. You serve a God that will do exceedingly abundantly above all you could ever ask, think, or imagine. I want you to stop thinking that your journey has, you're ashamed of it and you don't want anybody to know. You don't have to make a public service announcement. Letting go is between you and God. Some folks might write poems, some might write a book. I know a friend of mine is on here. She's going to be sharing her journey of deep hurt in the darkness, and she's going to be scripting it in a book. Some people might do videos, some might just speak to one person. Some may just choose to say, God, I want to give back. Show me how. And I will give you a clue on something. A big part of your purpose is aligned to where your pain resides. I'm going to say that again. A big part of your purpose is aligned with where your pain resides. So you know my pain. And this is why my purpose is what it is. When I have said I want women to overcome their limits and own their greatness and purpose, when you hear me say that my mission is to engage, encourage, and empower women to transform their lives to one of purpose, passion, and prosperity, it's because many chapters of my life, I stripped myself of my power. I stripped myself of my voice. I held on to my limits and my limitations. And so a big part of your purpose is aligned to where your pain resides. Walk in your purpose. Own your greatness. Because greatness is truly in your DNA. And don't confuse being one-dimensional with your purpose, because you can have a job, you can work in a field, you can have a profession, you can have a career, and that is a part of who you are and what you do. But your purpose may very well be your ministry. They don't necessarily always coexist. So your purpose is for someone else. Your passion is for you. Your passion ignites you and gets you all excited as well. And sometimes there are those who are blessed where their purpose and their passion are one and the same. But you must never forget that purpose also evolves. Maybe who you were 5 years ago, 10 years ago, I would hope you're not the same person now, but your life's experiences, the last 4 years of my life, have been so significant, and especially the last 2, they've been so significant that my purpose has truly evolved. And that is why I really have a passion to ensure that as women, we encourage one another, because a lot of times you feel like you are alone and you are suffering in silence. That's why it's so important for me to believe in the power of being stronger together and sisterhood. You don't need a trailer load of people, but just make sure who is on your bus are praying people, are people who will push you, who are people of purpose, who know before they hastily give you an opinion that they seek God on your behalf, that they are positive people. Please know who is on your bus. They need to inspire you. They need to really ensure that they empower you and that they don't tickle with your ears with what you want to hear. They got to make you uncomfortable. Those are your real people. They're your 2 a.m. Who can you call at 2 o'clock in the morning? Those are your people. So, no, that you are now going to be entering the second quarter of this year shifted, transformed, renewing of the mind, circumcision of the heart. If there's a part of your heart that has been made stone, ask God to soften it again. And believe me, every day it's work in progress. How I do what I do, you always hear me say, but God. But for the grace of God, He will make a way. He will provide. He will. But it all begins and ends with you trusting God and believing in yourself. So I really do hope that this episode was meaningful for you. I hope this episode has provided you with some amount of reflection. I really do hope this episode is one that you will also rewatch. Most importantly, I hope that you will share it. Because one thing I know as women, we do not do enough of. We do not do enough of supporting one another. We also need to remember we must not judge one another. We don't know what people are going through, but instead support one another. We've got to engage, encourage, and empower one another. We need to hold each other's hands. Some people have hurt carrying from before their double-digit years, and all they need is somebody to come alongside them. Will you be that person today? I want to be that person. And here is what's beautiful. You don't have to unveil your all. You have to unveil it to God first. Because he already knows. He's just waiting on us. He's waiting on you and he's waiting on me. And so tonight, I want to clap myself for sharing this other aspect of my journey. And I can't describe how freeing it feels for me to share it. Because you see, even if you know or perceive, there is power in speaking up and speaking out. And I would say this to you. You are powered by God. You're powered by grace. And you are powered by grit. You go with your G's and gratitude. You're powered by God, grace, grit, and gratitude. Rise with that today. Own it today. Stand tall, shoulders square, head up, crown on, rise, shine. And may you remember every day, let go and live freely. I ask that you share this episode with someone else today. Never for a moment think an episode is only meant for you. Someone else needs it too. And when we keep information to ourselves, we're not allowing others to grow. I also ask that we pray one for another. Look at the names that are on this screen. Look at the names that are in the chat. Ask God to give you a name. Pray for another sister. Pray them through. Because a part of letting go means getting very, very uncomfortable. It could be letting go of a habit, like speaking negatively to yourself. It could be letting go of the habit of just not being confident or not speaking up. It could be letting go of perfectionism. Don't overthink what letting go means. It's different to each person. It could be just letting go of a deep-seated hurt and resentment. May it be that you spring into this new season of your life. I want you to spring clean. And I hope that this exercise is one that you will choose to take seriously. I am going to dig deeper for myself, but I can tell you that when we trust God, He will make a way when there seems to be no way. Thank you so much for joining. I know my mom is also on here, and she did such a phenomenal job last week, and that has been a part of my courage this week. And I did not even tell mom that I was going to be speaking up like this today, but I did pray hard. And I said, God, give me the strength. Use me to at least impact on one. And I pray to God that my one person who needs this message today heard it just when you needed it. Self-love. Choose yourself and choose to live this one life and live it fully. Whatever you need to do exactly that. Thanks again for joining for another episode of Real Talk with Marsha-Ann, a space where we engage, encourage, and empower one another to ensure that we transform our lives to one of purpose, passion, and prosperity. Sprinkle it with peace, positivity, and personal development, and live life fully now without delay. From my heart to yours, be blessed. Take care. Until next week for another episode of Real Talk with Marsha-Ann. Do like, subscribe, and ensure you turn your notifications on. 6 p.m. Central Time, Jamaica time, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And if you're catching the replay, comment replay and let me know what impact this episode has had on you. For those of you who are here for me live, I really value you dropping in the comments what impact this particular episode has also had on you. I'm so happy that I started Real Talk. I am so happy that I pressed through on days where I felt like I couldn't and shouldn't. And I'm so grateful for you being a part of my community. You are more than an audience of one for me. And I lift you all up in my prayers. And I say, God, I thank you for the spirit of sisterhood and tribe. One episode after another. Your direct messages after episodes water my soul. Believe it or not, I screenshot them and I save them for days where I feel like I do not have the energy to push to go on. And so I want to thank you for your time. You give up an hour and a half or hour and 15 minutes of your time on a Sunday. I don't take that for granted. You could be doing anything else. So from my heart to yours, God bless you. May God keep you and may God preserve you as you stand in your greatness. Own every bit of it and overcome your limits and own your purpose. Be blessed. Bye.